Change isn't just coming, it's already here. This is Ask for Change podcast, hosted by leadership expert Meridith Elliott Powell. Brings you weekly conversations with leaders and experts who are redefining success in a world of disruption. Let's begin today's journey and turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage.
All right, let's turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. Welcome to Ask for Change, the show that does exactly that. I got to tell you, I am super excited about today's show because I got the legend in here, the sales guru, the author of the book Unbeatable. Carson, welcome to the show.
Meredith, it's always good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, most people know you as just an exceptional sales professional. You're a best-selling author. You've got your own podcast. But, if you had to describe your journey as you think about the changes and the shifts that you've gone through, what would you tell the audience?
Enjoy the journey and learn every step of the way. It's going to go in directions that you will never fully anticipate. And all you can really control is how you prepare, how you show up, and then what you do with what happens. And that has served me really well along the way. And I'm continuing to do it every single day because, as you said in the preamble, it is really all about the change that is constantly around us. How are we going to survive and thrive in the change? And also, how are we going to meet our buyers where they are amidst rampant change?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just listening to a podcast this morning. It was Jeff Foxworthy of all people. It caught my attention because it was a very serious podcast. And they asked him what the key to life was. And he said, it's the key to life is letting go. He said a lot of what you said. You've got to invest in the things that are important to you, control your controllables, but then at the end of the day, just really, trust the journey. And I think about the amount of change that we're going through right now, the amount of burnout, the amount of overwhelm that is happening to people. We have so much on our plates. But I'm really interested in, when I think about you, I mean, you're a successful sales professional, you lead a team, you got to have unbelievable pressures on you at work. You're a dad, you're a spouse, you're a husband. How do you keep it all? How do you find balance in all of that? If it is balance, or how do you find and focus on the things that matter to you the most?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Sometimes, and I don't purport to have all the answers, but I've found that when I consciously shrink my bubble and try to figure out what noise I need to be listening to, that's when the magic happens. It's the relationships that you invest in. And, even when stuff's going haywire all around me, I think about my wife, I think about my kids, I think about my team, my direct reports, and my leadership. And if that bubble, when I shrink it, is good, then I have the ability to branch out and start getting to and tending to some of these other fires. Because believe me, there's always going to be fires. There's always going to be minutia. There's always going to be a lot of noise. And I think one of the things that life and hopefully wisdom has taught me is that being able to discern what you want to gravitate toward. I was listening to a podcast not too long ago myself where the analogy was made of, you got all these balls in the air. Some of them are rubber and some of them are glass. And you have to figure out which ones are which, because you have to catch the ones that are glass. The others are rubber. They will bounce. They will come back, and you will have the opportunity to broach that topic when the time is right. But as long as your core sphere is good, that's the top priority.
I love that, because I think that is so true. I mean, at the end of the day, certain things matter and certain things don't. I think a lot about my life in increments of 10 years, and I'll look back on 10 years and I'll think about what did I remember in those 10 years. And those are the things that are obviously important to me. That's where I want to put my time. That's where I want to put my energy as I look forward to the next 10 years. Because if I'm reflecting and and for me, it's like, I never remember being on a stage. I never remember making a sales call. It's trips with the family. I mean, it's things like that. And it gives you sort of permission to do that, going forward. I want to talk about your book though. I want to talk about Unbeatable, the legend of the salesman on fire. This is about a gentleman by the name of Vincent Scott, who is your creation. But here's the line that really, I want to know, this is such a different book for you. And it's such a different book from a sales perspective. And it's about becoming, a real legend in the sales industry. But this is what really caught my attention, because I think so much of it goes with this whole idea of navigating change. Because I think one reason people give up on change is because it gets hard. And that's when we give up. When, if you could just stay through when it's hard, you'll find this sweet reward on the other side. And you have a line in this book that said, "You become the greatest by refusing to quit when everything in you says walk away." So talk about the book, talk about Vincent, talk about the reason you wrote it. Just dive in.
Yeah. Wow. First off, thank you for reading it, and I value your opinion a great deal, and I'm very appreciative, Meredith, of everything that you do for our noble profession. I always like to give back to our noble profession. I feel like I owe it a lot. I met my wife in sales. I have developed a lot of amazing relationships in sales, and so I feel like I owe it a great deal. And so this was a love letter to sales, and I always try to write something very different, because there's a lot of great sales books out there. I don't try to or want to compete with them. This was a fictional protagonist that I created 16 years ago, and I had written a story about him called Birth of a Salesman back in 2010, and I saw his journey through to completion. Who knows? But I think for me it was all about, we go through these changes, we go through these ups and downs, and when I think about that moment, it's a conscious decision to continue to get up off the mat. Like, one of my favorite movies ever is Rocky, and I think about like that scene in Rocky 1 when he's knocked down by Apollo Creed, the champion of the world, who he never should have even been able to compete with. And even his trainer is telling him to stay on the mat, but he just wants to go the distance, and he gets up against all odds and shocks everybody. But my point is, like, we have a conscious decision to keep going. It was Napoleon Hill who told us in Think and Grow Rich that the people that find success find it on the other side of when most people would have given up. And that's the truth. Sometimes we quit or we throw in the towel just before that, like you said, that sweet spot on the other side arrives. And that's really what it's all about. You don't have to make massive changes to yourself or to your process to become successful. You have to control what you can, and you also have to make the decision to keep going and to keep learning. And that's really what it's all about. That's how to become unbeatable.
Yeah. So, from the time that you wrote Birth of a Salesman till you wrote Unbeatable, do you think our desire, our commitment, our willingness to work through the hard stuff has diminished some in today's marketplace?
I guess that would depend on who you ask. I think for some, perhaps it definitely looks different, but I think the human spirit is always resilient, Meredith. And so I think that the goals and the desires and the fire, that tenacity, and, I still see it every day in people. I think the challenges are different in some ways than ever before. But, in some ways, what we grapple with, and we see this rise of AI. I mean, it's like an industrial revolution, right? I mean, you can look back at various points in history where fundamentally the game has changed. And in my opinion, like, the people that are going to thrive are going to where the buyer is going to be. I mean, to make the hockey analogy, you go to where the puck is going to be, not to where it is. And so, staying attuned to your buyer, staying at the pulse of what matters to the people that you want to matter to. The challenges look different, but I think the human spirit, the resilience, the tenacity, the fire, and the payoff are all very similar to how they've always been. We just have to look at it in a different lens.
Yeah. Well, in Unbeatable, poor Vincent faces so much. I mean, he gets overlooked. He loses out. Where does one go to get that motivation, to get that willingness to get back up? Years ago, when I first started studying, I'm obsessed with successful people. It's really interesting to me how you could come from nothing and achieve unbelievable heights. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to sit with two billionaires, one of which had been born in a house with no running water. And when I and in all the interviews that I had with them, all the time I spent talking, they got it down to one thing. And the one thing was, they said, we had no net. There was nobody to catch us if we fell. Every time we fell, we couldn't move back in with our parents. Our parents didn't have any money. They couldn't give us any money. They were close to their 90s, so there was no government support for them. And they credit it with, they just had to keep getting back up and dusting themselves off and going. And it built this unbelievable confidence in them. So far too often, though, it's tough, right? Like, you should have gotten a promotion. You don't get a promotion. You did everything to get that deal and you didn't get that deal. You practiced like crazy. You were supposed to be a rock star. You got on stage and you bombed. Like, where do we go? Where did Vincent go to get himself back up?
We're constantly, and I love that you said that, Meridith, because I do the same. I study successful people. I would love to trade reading lists with you. I've studied from like the Williams sisters to Elvis Presley. Like, I want to know, like, these people that have this insane talent, but there are commonalities. And it's often in the foundational elements of upbringing. There's different things that instill in them either a sense of responsibility or a chip on their shoulder, like, I don't ever want to be poor again, or I don't ever want to be bullied again, or whatever it is. There was a movie that I watched not long ago called Invincible with Mark Wahlberg as Vince Papale of the Philadelphia Eagles. And he kept this letter that his wife wrote him when she dumped him and telling him that he was worthless. Like, I had an appraisal years ago that a manager wrote on me. It's the only bad appraisal I've ever had. And I kept it because I want to read it. And I want to go back to that place, knowing how I felt in that moment and the fire that it lit in me. And so when you ask, where does Vincent go? Where do we all go? We have to go back to our core values. We have to go back to our fundamentals, what makes us tick. Sometimes it's a chip on our shoulder. Sometimes it's something from a past trauma. Sometimes it is that chase of the win or the success. It's that dopamine drive that we're going after. There's a lot of things that can drive people, and a lot of it is psychological. But I think at the end of it, it's, for him and for many of us, it's a selfless desire to reach potential, but also help others and serve. And that's why I think, when you think about asking for change, and when you think about where our sales profession is and where it's going, it is really right now all about, more than ever, seeking to serve, to be of value, to really lean in. And the needs of our buyers look different. And so we have to serve them like never before. And for Vincent, it was always an obsession with, how can I best show up in any given moment? And even though I just got the snot kicked out of me, like, okay, what's the playing field look like right now? I can control the space that I'm sitting in, and it's a shrinking of sphere. It's a shrinking of bubble. I may be completely deserted. I may be completely alone, but like, I'm okay. I'm ready to take that next step forward. And sometimes it's, even if you're just taking baby steps forward, it's keep moving forward.
Yeah, because the progress is, that's where you're going to find the answer. The other thing I think too is that it's like, the other thing I love about Vincent, which I think is something of life too, is that when Vincent gets on the other side, he's ready to be on the other side. And I've always thought, it reminds me of going to a high school reunion, and going to a high school reunion, especially when you've reached my age, is like, you really reach a point where people who struggled in high school are usually far more successful at this point in life than people who really had it easy. And I think it's something we've kind of lost in our profession and in our society. When you think about the economy being good, I always say to people, you're not really selling when the economy is good. You're kind of opening the door, and people ask you for stuff, and they're not paying that much attention to price. They don't care. And even if they make a mistake, it's not a big deal to them. But the moment that the economy, retracts, like it gets a little tight, then you got to sell. It's not that they won't spend money, but now it got hard. So they need to understand what they're paying for. And I think resistance, challenge is a really good thing. So when I think about Vincent, he would never have been the salesperson he becomes had he not been beaten up a little bit on the way.
You get, you develop that thick skin, that alligator
Yeah.
skin. And I have a saying that I like to always say when things are challenging. Things are challenging right now. My sales team works in the nonprofit sector, and there's a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty. And I always tell my team, if you can sit with your customers in the storm, they will walk with you in the sun. Right now is the time to be investing in those relationships. Be there. You don't have to have all the answers. But you have to be supportive, be present, be responsive, be communicative, be transparent. And if you do those things, guess what? When those things happen, and when the purse strings loosen, or the tectonic plates shift, guess what? You have created a foundation that is rife with opportunity and possibility. Before you feast, you have to set the table. And right now, or when things are challenging, you invest in relationships, and it may not be the right fit. I have scenarios where I've recommended my competition because I had a friend at the competition and I wasn't the right fit, but hey, call this person over at this organization. I'll introduce you. They'll take care of you, because guess what? When that person needed something that I could take care of, or when they went to another organization where they weren't constricted with who they work with, I'm the first call they make because I invested in the relationship and they trust me. That is far more important. And relationships are what beget deals. Too many people go chase numbers and widgets, and they get managed off of spreadsheets, and that's all wrong. I've never worried about a number a day in my life. I've obsessed over people and process, and that's it. And those things have helped me be successful.
What do you think that when I think about what we've got to go through to be successful, whether it be your personal or professional life? I mean, things are hard, right? Like you said, you get the sun and you get the storm, and when you're in the sun that the storm will come again. One of the things I loved about being a banker back when I was a banker is that I would study businesses over the course of 40, 50 years. And you would see they would have unbelievable years where they just were so profitable. And then they would tank, and then they would go right back up again. It's kind of like reading history. You get a lot of motivation from that because you understand there's a wave coming. So when you're in the hole, you understand you're going to come back out of it. But how important do you think it is that that in order to ride those, the areas of your life are in shape for it? Like, you've got a strong family or friendship circle around you. You take care of your health. You invest what you need to, in the business. You've done what you've done to kind of straighten out your finances, and whatever spirituality is for you, you've basically checked those buckets. How much does the whole person matter?
That question is so important, Meredith. And actually, I have a visual over here in my office, and it's like a wheel, and it has a lot of those components: finances, health, career, marriage. And at any given moment, like, you could rate all these things from a 1 to a 10, and it's important to do that personal inventory. You're not going to be a 10 in all areas at all the time. It just won't happen. It's not possible. But like you said, things come in waves. It's like a pendulum, and things will come back and forth. But you have to consciously invest in each of those things. Like, if I don't check in with my wife, and if I don't buy her flowers from time to time and acknowledge the amazing things that she's doing, guess what? I'm going to have marital problems.
Right.
If I don't, check in with my kids and spend time with my children, I'm not going to have a great relationship there. But on the same token, like, if I start shirking my responsibilities at work to wine and dine my wife and hang out with my kids all day, every day, my job is going to suffer. And so there is a constant balancing act, and you've got to make sure that you're investing. But I look at it like a stock portfolio. You can't predict where these things are going to go. Things are going to change and transpire in your work and your personal life that you don't see coming. All you can do is prepare as best you can and invest as best you can, but also to pay attention, to attune, to listen to what's transpiring. And sometimes your work's going to need you more. Sometimes your marriage is going to need you more. And so being able to, create a scenario by which you can tend to these things that really need you in any given moment in time. But it's important to take that personal inventory, because the last thing you want, if one area of your life is severely out of whack, it is going to impact everything else. If you let your health go, as an example, it's going to impact everywhere else. But I strongly encourage people to take that personal inventory because, like a diversified stock portfolio, you can't control what's going to go up or down. You can only control where you invest. But over the long game, if you invest consistently in these things, they will be in a positive place.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think they're always a little off balance, right? I mean, like you said, you can't, like, as much as we'd want to be there for every kid's game or never miss anything that's important at home. You can't do that because you have a job and you've got to be focused on that job. But you've got to invest in all those areas. Like, I really believe that if you take care of your health, you straighten your finances, you invest in your relationships and your marriage, you're stronger at work. You're better. You're far better at work. I don't think that those aspects, I call it, I say we have to get in shape for change these days, that we have to really look at our lives, like you said, really build the foundation. When the foundation is solid, then everything else, then we can handle everything else that's coming. But if you're sitting on a struggling foundation, then it's just too hard. It's just too hard to do. Yeah. I'm curious, why did you write the book? What really, like, what drives your passion? What drives your passion to do this?
I love sales. And, I'm at a very fortunate, very blessed place in my life and my career where I'm able to look back and reflect on some of the key seminal moments. I always like to say, you can't connect the dots forward, but you can absolutely connect them backwards. And there were times in my life, in my career, where I was down and out. And in those moments, like, it is excruciating, it is grueling. I think a big part of it was seeing so many colleagues and friends, like, going through things that had transpired in my life, like getting laid off,
Yeah.
and, having challenges with kids or, with different facets of life. And, the magic of a fictional character is you can appropriate any experiences and any characteristics. And let's be real, a lot of those things are autobiographical.
Yeah, I thought. Well, we do believe your journey is in there.
Yeah, it's therapeutic. It's therapeutic
Yeah.
to be able to write that, but also to be at a place in your life where you can be grateful and take stock of the amazing experiences that you've been blessed to have, but also even the incredible wisdom and joy that has come out of, like, emerging from, like, being down and out. So much great learning happens during those times. So many things that you become grateful for. But what I think is fascinating too about getting older, and I was listening to a podcast not too long ago where this was said as well. We spent so much of our first 30, 40 years, like, accumulating, like, going out and getting. And much of time after that is, things, you will start to lose things. You'll lose relationships. There will be relationships that are long-time relationships in your life that are no longer serving you. And while it's hard and we grieve and we mourn them, there is a natural passage of time in that space. And that, for me, that's what Unbeatable was. It was something that could be a love letter to sales, but also to speak to every seller that I know that's out there. Like, I've more than any book that I've written, I've gotten more letters of, like, wow, I relate to this so much. Like, I felt like I was reading my own story. I felt like it was the thing that sellers need to read right now.
Yeah, I just I love the fact that I do think we can relate to it. I think that, for anybody listening going through challenging times, I think there's nothing better than to read somebody else who's been through challenging times or more challenging times than you have. That's why I'm such a fan of history, and I like to read history, because every challenge you're facing, other people have already faced it, if not far worse, and they've come through it on the other side, and that helps you dig deep and really really find the motivation. Well, it's hard to believe, but we're coming to the end of this podcast. I want to end with two questions I always end with. You can answer them in either order. What is your biggest advice for people facing change and uncertainty? If they've got to ask for change, what's your biggest piece of advice they're going to need to be successful in the coming year? And then how do people get a copy of Unbeatable? How do they follow you? And how do they tune into your podcast and all the good posts you put on social media?
Meridith, I just want to say thank you. I always enjoy our time and everything that you do for sales, and I've learned a lot from you and continue to do so. My advice is really listen and discern the voices that matter most. There's so much noise right now, and there's so many people telling you to go focus on this or that, but the voice that matters the most, if you're in sales, is your customer. And there's nothing like getting that time with them and really understanding what are the problems that they're trying to solve, what is the legacy that they're trying to leave, and thinking about intentionally, how can you help unlock that? I have shifted so far away from it isn't about showing up and talking about products and flexing your mental knowledge of how great your solution is. No, it's about understanding what is it that makes your customer tick. What risk do they see in making a change? Because you can't ask for change unless you understand the totality of their position. What risk do they see? Why are they going down the current path that they're on? A lot of these customers, they're not married to their current course of action. They just don't want to mess up. Because in ambiguous times, more than anything, people are clinging to their current situations as best they can. We don't even know what the workforce is going to look like in 5 to 10 years with the rise of AI and automation. Things are going to be very different. And so right now, if you really want to ask for change, you've got to really listen and you've got to discern the voices that matter most. Lean in with your customer, understand the legacy they want to leave, and understand the problems that they want to solve. Because if you can be a part of that solution, they'll walk with you. As far as Unbeatable, it's available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual suspects. Every Wednesday, I meet up with Brandon Lee and Tom Burton, and we do Mastering Modern Selling. So you can check us out there. That's on LinkedIn. Always love to connect on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an amazing place for meeting up. Please connect and message me there. Would love to chat anytime.
Well, I can say that if you connect with Carson, he will definitely connect with you. Do tune into his podcast. It's really fantastic. You'll get a lot of really great tips. And Carson, I want to thank you for joining us today. As always, nothing I love better than my conversations with you about sales, life, success, and becoming unbeatable. I want to remind the audience, pick up a copy of the book. It is excellent. It's a great book to read with your sales teams and to discuss how Vincent's life and Vincent's challenges apply to what you're going through and how you can use them to literally ask for change and turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. We'll see you right back here next week.